The sky above the alien city turned blood red. It was not from the setting suns, but from the ships of the apex swarm descending like a storm. Their shadows crawled over the crystal towers, and the sound of their engines made the ground tremble. Every living thing knew the apex swarm did not come to talk. They came to kill. And when they came, nothing survived. Alyra stood frozen on the balcony of her family's home. She had heard stories of the apex swarm since childhood. They were said to be the perfect predators of the universe, creatures that had wiped out entire star systems for sport. No army had beaten them. No wall had stopped them. And now they were here. The streets below her filled with panic. Soldiers ran to their positions, but even they looked afraid. From the horizon, black shapes tore through the clouds. Their wings were like knives. Their claws dripped with venom that could dissolve steel. Alyra's heart pounded as the first of the swarm landed in the central plaza. Its height dwarfed any alien soldier. Its head moved slowly, eyes glowing like molten gold. It let out a roar that shattered windows and froze the crowd. People screamed, scattering in every direction. The city's defense cannons opened fire. Bright energy bolts streaking through the air. The apex predator dodged like liquid shadow, leaping into a tower and slicing through it with one sweep of its claws. Debris crashed into the streets, crushing fleeing civilians. Alyra stumbled back, covering her ears against the screams. She knew they wouldn't last long. No one ever did against the swarm. Then from the smoke, a figure walked forward, alone. Unarmored, not alien, a man. Alyra's eyes narrowed, trying to understand what she was seeing. She had seen humans before, rarely, and always in peaceful trade ships, but this one looked different. His shoulders were broad. His clothes were torn and scorched, yet his eyes were steady. He carried a weapon unlike anything she recognized. It was short, black, and simple. Too small to harm something as massive as the apex predator. Yet he held it as if it was all he needed. The crowd noticed him too. Whispers rippled through the survivors. Some shouted at him to run. Others laughed bitterly, convinced he was a doomed fool. But the human didn't run. He walked straight toward the apex predator. Alyra felt her breath catch. She had seen soldiers face the swarm before. They always attacked in groups, wearing full battle armor, supported by heavy weapons. This man had none of that. He was just human. The predator noticed him and turned its head. A deep growl rolled out, shaking the ground. Its claws flexed. Alyra expected it to leap and tear him apart in one motion. Instead, the man stopped walking, tilted his head, and smirked. It was not a nervous smirk. It was the smirk of someone who had already decided how this fight would end. He raised his weapon. The apex predator roared and charged. It moved like lightning, claws flashing, jaws snapping. But the human's body shifted with a precision Alyra had never seen. He ducked under a swipe, sidestepped another, and aimed. His weapon spat fire and sound. The creature's chest exploded in a spray of black ichor. It stumbled, enraged, and lunged again. This time the human didn't dodge. He met its charge head-on, one hand grabbing the creature's claw mid-swing. Alyra's jaw dropped. No one touched an apex predator and lived. The air cracked. The human twisted, and the predator's entire arm ripped free. Its scream rattled the air. He tossed the severed limb aside like trash. Then, in one smooth motion, he drove his weapon into the beast's skull. A flash of light burst outward, and the apex predator's head shattered into pieces. Its body collapsed with a sound like falling stone. The ground shook under its weight. For a moment, silence fell. Everyone stared, unable to believe what they had seen. The apex swarm had ruled fear for centuries. They were death made flesh. And yet, one human had just torn their strongest hunter apart in less than a minute. Alyra realized her hands were shaking. She wasn't sure if it was fear or something else. She had seen power before, but never like this. The man looked around. At the stunned crowd, his eyes met hers. For a brief moment, she forgot to breathe. There was no triumph in his gaze, no arrogance, just a strange calm, like he had done this many times before. Then he turned and began walking deeper into the city, as if the battle had only just begun. Alyra knew she couldn't just stand there. Something told her the swarm would not stop with one fallen predator. And something else told her that if anyone could stop them, it was this human, Asterisk. Alyra pushed her way through the frightened crowd. People were still screaming, still running, but she couldn't take her eyes off the human who had just killed the apex predator. The way he moved, the way he looked, nothing about him felt ordinary. She had grown up believing humans were weaker than most warrior species, fragile, short-lived. But the man she had just seen was nothing like that. The plaza was littered with debris. Smoke rose from burning towers. Somewhere far away, another roar shook the air. Alyra froze. That sound wasn't the same as before. This was deeper, angrier. She remembered the stories. The apex swarm never attacked alone. If one hunter fell, the others would come for revenge. Her people's army could barely hold back a single one. Against more, the city would be doomed. The human didn't seem worried. He stopped in the center of the street and knelt beside a wounded alien soldier. Without a word, he pressed a small silver device to the soldier's chest. Light flared, and the soldier gasped, suddenly able to breathe again. Alyra's eyes widened. The man wasn't just a killer he could heal. But why would he save strangers? In the middle of a war zone? It didn't make sense. She followed at a distance, her heart pounding. The human's weapon was still in his hand. Every few steps he scanned the rooftops, the shadows, the sky. Alyra realized he wasn't just wandering, he was hunting. And the prey he wanted was far more dangerous than the one he had already killed. Another explosion rocked the street ahead. A building collapsed, sending a wave of dust into the air. Out of the haze stepped not one, but two apex predators. Their armor-like skin was darker than the first's, their bodies even larger. Their eyes burned with a sickening hunger. The nearest one let out a screech that made Alyra's ears ring. People scattered, but she couldn't move. She was rooted to the spot, watching the human lift his weapon again. The predators charged together. Alyra thought no one could face two at once, but the human didn't back away. He sprinted forward, his body moving faster than her eyes could follow. A claw slashed at his head. He ducked under it and drove his fist into the creature's chest so hard that bone cracked. The second one tried to bite him from behind. Without turning, he swung his weapon backward, firing straight into its open mouth. The shot burned through its skull, dropping it instantly. The first predator howled in fury and swiped again. This time the man caught its wrist, twisted, and used the creature's own momentum to slam it into the ground. The pavement cracked under the impact. He placed one boot on its neck and pulled a small blade from his belt. The blade was no longer than his forearm, but it glowed with a strange blue light. One quick motion, and the predator's head rolled away. Alyra realized she was holding her breath. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Her people had spent decades studying the swarm's weaknesses, and still no army had managed this. Yet this human had done it without armor, without backup, and without fear. She didn't know whether to feel hope or terror. The human turned and spotted her. For a moment, their eyes locked again. He said nothing, but motioned for her to follow. She hesitated. Why her? She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't even armed. But something about the way he looked at her told her she had a choice: stay here and die when the rest of the swarm came, or follow him into whatever madness he was planning. Her legs moved before her mind decided. She jogged to catch up with him. Up close she could see the cuts and burns on his skin, the way his breathing stayed calm despite the chaos. He glanced at her briefly. "You know the city," he said simply. His voice was deep, steady. "Yes," she managed. "Then you'll help me find their nest." The word sent a chill through her. No one went looking for an apex nest. It was suicide. But looking at him, Alyra felt the strange, impossible thought that maybe, just maybe, he could do it. She nodded. They moved quickly, cutting through alleyways and empty streets. The sounds of battle echoed from every direction. At one point, they passed a group of alien soldiers who stared in disbelief at the human walking among them. One of them stepped forward. "What are you?" the soldier demanded. The human's answer was short. "Just passing through." Then he kept walking. As they neared the industrial sector, Alyra's stomach tightened. She could feel it now, the same cold, crawling energy she had felt when the first predator arrived. It was stronger here. The swarm was close. She knew the human could feel it too, because his grip on his weapon tightened. He stopped suddenly and looked at her. "When we find it," he said, "don't run. Stay behind me, no matter what you see." She wanted to ask why, but before she could, a shadow fell over them. The ground trembled. A sound like grinding stone filled the air. Alyra looked up and her blood turned to ice. Crawling over the rooftops was something far bigger than any predator she had ever seen. Its body was a mountain of black muscle and armored plates. Its eyes glowed like burning suns. This wasn't just a hunter. This was their alpha. The human didn't flinch. He stepped forward, and the massive creature let out a roar that shook the city to its bones. The alpha predator's roar rolled through the streets like thunder. Windows shattered, metal bent. Alyra felt the vibration in her chest, as if her heart was about to burst. This creature was different from the others, not only in size, but in the way it moved. Every step it took left deep cracks in the pavement. Its claws were longer than spears. Its tail swayed like a weapon of its own. It looked down at them, and for the first time in her life, Alyra felt truly small. The human didn't move away. He stepped forward. His eyes never left the alpha's face. Alyra thought he must be insane. Every story she had heard about apex alphas ended the same way, with entire cities destroyed. But the human didn't draw back in fear. He simply rolled his shoulders like a fighter preparing for a match. She noticed his weapon was still low, almost relaxed, as though the monster in front of him was no different from the two he had killed. Earlier, the alpha moved first. Its leap shook the earth, its claws slicing through the air like scythes. The human slid to the side, missing the attack by inches. He fired upward, his weapon's blast tearing a chunk from the alpha's shoulder. The beast roared again, but this time it was pain mixed with rage. Alyra saw black ichor spray across the walls. The predator swung its massive tail toward him, and the man ducked under it, rolling smoothly and coming up on one knee to fire again. The fight was nothing like the quick kills before. The alpha was faster, smarter, and far more brutal. It smashed entire buildings with a swipe of its arms. The human avoided the hits by the narrowest margins, weaving in and out of its reach, striking only when he saw an opening. Alyra could see the strain in his movements now. The ground around them was littered with shards of stone and twisted metal. Every blast from his weapon left a fresh wound, but none deep enough to finish the fight. The alpha lunged again, this time catching the human with a glancing blow. He was thrown into a wall, the impact cracking the stone. Alyra gasped. For a moment, he didn't move. The predator advanced, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. Alyra's instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet wouldn't move. She could only watch as the monster's massive claw reached down, only for the human to suddenly grab it with both hands and twist. The sound was like breaking bone. The alpha roared in shock as its arm bent the wrong way. In the same motion, the human climbed its arm, moving up the beast's body with terrifying speed. He reached its neck and slammed a glowing blue blade deep into the joint where the armor plates met. The Alpha thrashed wildly, smashing walls and shaking the street, but the human held on, twisting the blade deeper. Black ichor sprayed like rain. With a deafening bellow, the Alpha flung itself backward into a building, crushing the human under its massive body. Alyra's heart stopped. Dust filled the air. For a long moment, she saw nothing but the fallen shape of the predator lying still. Then from the haze, movement. The human crawled out from beneath it, covered in black and red, breathing hard but still standing. He walked forward, dragging his blade behind him, the glow still bright. The Alpha rose again. Slower now, one arm hanging useless at its side. Its eyes blazed with fury, but there was something else fear. Alyra saw it in the way the beast hesitated. The man approached like a hunter finishing wounded prey. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He simply moved forward, each step echoing. On the cracked pavement, the Alpha swung at him weakly. He sidestepped and drove the blade straight into its chest, right where its heart would be. The creature convulsed once, twice, then it collapsed, the ground shuddering under its weight. The glow in its eyes faded. The street fell silent except for the faint crackle of distant fires. Alyra felt her knees weaken. She had just watched the most feared predator in the universe fall to a single man. He pulled his blade free and turned to her. "That's one nest's leader down," he said, his voice calm, almost casual. "But there will be more." Alyra's mind struggled to catch up. "You mean there are other Alphas?" The man nodded. "And they won't stop until we end them at the source." Before she could respond, a loud alien shriek echoed across the city. It was higher than the Alpha's roar, more piercing. The human's head snapped toward the sound. "That," he said, "is the call for reinforcements." Alyra felt the dew. Blood drained from her face. If this was just one leader, what kind of monsters would answer the call? The man began walking toward the industrial zone again, his weapon reloaded and ready. Alyra followed, her mind spinning. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he came from. But she knew one thing: he was the only reason she was still alive, and maybe the only one who could save the city. The streets were quieter now, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Alyra stayed close to the human as they moved through the industrial sector. The air here was thick with smoke and the smell of burnt metal. In the distance, she could still hear the faint hum of the apex swarms. Ships circling overhead. Somewhere out there, more predators were gathering. The man walked with purpose, scanning every shadow, every alley. Alyra noticed he had switched his weapon's power core, sliding in a larger one from a pouch at his belt. "Why are we going toward the danger?" she finally asked. He didn't look at her. "Because if we wait, the danger will come to us, and we'll have no place to run." His voice was calm, but there was a weight in it, a man who had seen this kind of war before. They reached a row of storage yards, the fences torn apart like paper. Inside, machines lay in twisted heaps, crushed under claw marks bigger than Alyra's whole body. She shivered. This was no random attack. The swarm had been here already. The human crouched and touched the ground, his eyes scanning the black ichor stains. "They came through here," he murmured, "not long ago." Then he stood, turning toward the largest warehouse. "That's where we'll find them," Alyra followed reluctantly. The warehouse doors hung open, bent and scorched. Inside, the air was heavy with heat and the low, throbbing sound of something alive. She squinted, her eyes adjusting to the dim light, and then froze. The floor was alive. Hundreds of small apex creatures crawled and slithered over each other, their bodies slick and their claws sharp. They weren't fully grown yet, but their numbers alone made her stomach twist. This was a hatchery. The human didn't waste time. He raised his weapon and fired. The first line of creatures burst apart, ichor spraying. The others reacted instantly, shrieking and charging. Alyra backed away as the man stepped forward, blasting row after row, his movements sharp and controlled. But for every one he killed, more emerged from the shadows. They moved like a tide, climbing the walls and ceiling. Trying to surround him, Alyra saw one drop from above, aiming straight for his back. "Behind you!" she shouted. The man spun, his blade flashing in a quick arc, slicing the creature clean. In two before it touched him. Then he moved faster, switching between his gun and blade in a rhythm that seemed almost impossible for one person to maintain. His strikes were precise, every movement designed to kill in a single hit. Still, the numbers were overwhelming. A creature leapt past him and landed near Alyra, its claws reaching for her. She stumbled back, fear choking her voice. Before it could strike, a blast tore through its chest. The man had fired without even looking, his instincts saving her life. "Stay behind me," he said firmly, never pausing his attack. The floor became slick with black ichor. The smell was suffocating. The tide of creatures began to slow, their numbers finally thinning. The man's weapon hissed as its power core overheated. He holstered it and gripped his blade with both hands. The last few creatures charged together, but he moved through them like a storm, cutting them down in a blur of motion until the warehouse fell silent. Alyra's heart pounded. The hatchery was destroyed, but the sound of the earlier shriek still echoed in her mind. "Will they come here now?" she asked quietly. The man wiped the blade clean on a fallen creature's hide. "They already know. This was their future. I just burned it to the ground." His tone carried no pride, only certainty. They stepped back outside, and Alyra noticed the air had changed. The hum of ships above was louder now. In the far distance, dark shapes moved across the skyline. The man looked up, his expression hardening. "That's not just hunters," he said. "That's a war pack." Alyra felt her stomach twist. She had heard of war packs, dozens of predators moving together, led by a war alpha. No army had ever stood against one and lived. The human turned toward the city's central district. "We draw them there," he said. "Open ground, fewer civilians. Then we end it." Alyra stared at him, shocked. "End it? How? You can't fight all of them." He glanced at her. "Not alone." For the first time she thought she saw something like a smile tug at his lips. "But I didn't come here alone." Before she could ask what he meant, a low rumble shook the ground. From beyond the horizon, a formation of dark, sharp-edged ships began to appear. They moved in perfect unison, their engines glowing like blue fire. Alyra's eyes widened. These were not alien ships she recognized. They were human. The man looked toward them with a quiet satisfaction. "They'll bring the rest of the fight," he said, "but I'll handle the alpha." Alyra realized she was standing at the edge of a battle unlike anything her people had ever seen, and the human wasn't afraid. If anything, he looked ready. The human ships cut through the clouds like blades. Their formation was tight, precise, and unlike anything Alyra had seen before. Her people's fleets were large and scattered, built for defense. The human ships looked like they had only one purpose: attack. Each hull was dark and angular, with heavy guns that glinted in the sunlight. The air trembled as their engines roared over the city. The man raised his wrist, and a small device lit up. "This is Hunter 1, he said into it. "Mark my position. Warpack inbound. Prepare for ground sweep." A sharp voice crackled back through the device. "Copy, Hunter 1. We've got your signal. Target priority confirmed." Alyra realized then, this wasn't just a random human. He was a commander. The sound of the warpack grew louder. In the distance, Alyra could make out shapes moving through the ruins, huge, armored beasts running on all fours, their bodies rippling with muscle. Smaller predators darted between them, their movements too fast for the eye to follow. Above them, winged apex scouts screeched warnings into the sky. The swarm was coming in full force. The human glanced at Alyra. When they hit, stay low and stay behind me. My team will clear the flanks. I'll take the alpha. She swallowed hard, nodding. The idea of staying anywhere near the fight seemed insane, but somehow she trusted him. His voice carried no doubt, no hesitation. Just certainty. The first of the war pack reached them, a predator the size of a small transport, its jaws wide. Enough to bite a person in half. The man fired a single shot, and its head exploded in a spray of ichor. Then the ground shook as the rest of the pack arrived, their roars blending into one deafening wave. The sky lit up as the human ships opened. Fire, streams of energy carving through the attackers. The air filled with the smell of burning flesh and the crack of weapons. Alyra ducked behind a chunk of collapsed wall, peeking out only to see the man moving like a living weapon. He never stayed in one place, always shifting, firing, striking, then vanishing into another angle. Every predator that got close fell in seconds. The humans in the skies above were just as relentless. Each shot was deadly, no wasted fire. The battle was chaos, but it was controlled chaos, and the humans were winning. Then the ground split open. Alyra stumbled as a massive claw burst through the street, tearing up chunks of concrete. A shadow rose from the crater, blotting out the sun. It was larger than any predator she had seen before, even bigger than the alpha from earlier. Its body was covered in scarred armor plates, each marked with old battle wounds. Its eyes glowed an intense crimson. This was the war alpha. The human's gaze locked onto it immediately. "That's mine," he said, almost to himself. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward it, dodging the claws of smaller predators that tried to intercept him. Alyra could barely follow his speed. He moved like he had been born for this moment. The war alpha roared, a sound so deep it rattled the bones. It lunged, its claws striking with the force of a falling building. The human rolled under the blow, his blade flashing. Sparks flew as the weapon scraped against the alpha's armor, leaving a glowing cut. The beast reacted instantly, its tail whipping around like a spear. The human caught it with one arm, twisting it until the bone cracked, then slamming it into the ground. The alpha's roar turned to rage and pain. In the skies above, human ships circled, keeping the rest of the war pack from closing in. Alyra could see the precision of their coordination. They were holding the battlefield open for the human's duel. Every strike he landed seemed to draw more fury from the alpha, but also more desperation. The creature's movements became wilder, more reckless. It was fighting for its life. The man leapt onto its back, driving his blade into the seams of its armor. The alpha bucked violently, smashing into walls and throwing itself against the ground to shake him off. He held on, climbing higher, each strike aimed at weakening its thick neck plates. Ichor poured from its wounds, staining the streets black. Alyra's heart raced. She had never seen anything so brutal, so focused. The alpha spun suddenly, slamming the human against a wall hard enough to crack the stone. He slid down to the ground, his breathing heavy. The beast charged, jaws wide. Alyra screamed a warning, but the man stood his ground. At the last moment, he threw something into its mouth, a small metal sphere. The alpha bit down, and the sphere exploded in a burst of blue light. The shockwave tore its lower jaw apart, sending the massive creature reeling. The human didn't waste the moment. He rushed forward, blade in both hands, and drove it upward, through the alpha's throat. The glow from the weapon pulsed once, twice, and then the alpha collapsed, its body shaking the ground like an earthquake. Silence fell across the battlefield for a single, breathless moment. Then the human's voice cut through the quiet. "Hunter 1 to all units, Alpha down. Push the rest into the kill zone." The human ships roared overhead, their fire doubling in intensity. Alyra stood frozen, realizing she had just witnessed the impossible again. But deep down she knew the fight was not over yet. Asterisk. The War Alpha's body lay motionless, its black ichor pooling across the broken street. Around them, the battlefield was still alive with flashes of light and the roar of engines. The human ships were relentless, herding the remaining predators into narrow corridors where their firepower shredded them apart. Every few seconds, another screech faded into silence as one more apex creature fell. Alyra stepped out from behind the crumbling wall, her legs unsteady. She had seen many battles before, but never one like this. It wasn't just the strength of the human ships or the precision of their attacks. It was the way they moved as one. Every soldier, every pilot, fighting with the same unshakable purpose. It was as if the entire battle had been planned long before the swarm even arrived. The Manhunter One stood at the center of it all. His weapon was lowered now, but his eyes still scanned the battlefield. He tapped his wrist device again. "Status report," he said. A voice answered almost instantly. "Enemy numbers at 20% and falling. No civilian casualties in your sector." He gave a short nod. "Maintain the sweep. No survivors." Alyra shivered at the cold certainty in his tone. He wasn't cruel. He was simply unwilling to give the swarm a chance to rise again. One of the smaller human craft descended nearby, its landing gear crushing debris beneath it. The hatch opened, and a group of armored soldiers emerged. Their armor was heavy and angular, but their movements were quick and disciplined. Each carried weapons similar to the man's, though none of them looked as worn or battle-scarred as his. The lead soldier approached, saluting sharply. "Sir, the perimeter is secure. No sign of additional alphas." "Good," the man replied. "Set demolition charges on the hatchery ruins. I want the whole area sterilized." Alyra's eyes widened. "Sterilized? You mean?" He looked at her. "They breed fast." "Too fast, even a single survivor could restart the swarm. We end them here completely." She understood, but her stomach still twisted. Entire species had been lost to the apex swarm before. If this was the only way to stop them forever, she couldn't argue. The human soldiers moved with mechanical precision, placing glowing charges across the remains of the industrial sector. Alyra followed Hunter One as he walked toward the city's damaged Central Plaza. Along the way, alien civilians peeked out from hiding places, their eyes wide with disbelief. Some looked at the human with gratitude, others with fear. Alyra noticed he never stopped to accept thanks. He just kept moving forward. When they reached the plaza, the human raised his wrist device one last time. "All units, detonate on my mark. 3, 2, 1. The ground shook as a chain of explosions tore through the industrial sector. Fire lit the horizon, and a thick column of black smoke rose into the sky. Alyra felt the heat even from here. The apex hatchery and everything. Inside it was gone. Forever. The man turned to her. "That's it. This city is safe now." Alyra studied him for a long moment. "You've fought them before." It wasn't a question. He met her gaze. "Too many times. My people have been hunting the swarm for over a century. We don't stop until the job's finished." "And you lead them?" she asked. He gave a faint smile. "Someone has to." For the first time, she realized what she had been seeing all day wasn't luck or chance. It was experience, decades of it, maybe more. This wasn't a man who stumbled into a fight. This was someone shaped by endless war. Someone who had turned himself into a weapon because the galaxy needed one. The other human soldiers regrouped, their ships hovering above in silent readiness. One of them approached. "Sir, High Command. Requests immediate debrief on Station Orion. Transport is ready." Hunter One nodded, then glanced back at Alyra. "You coming?" She blinked in surprise. "Me? Why?" "You know the terrain." You saw what they did here. My people need that knowledge for the next fight." He paused. "And you didn't run. Not many can say that." Alyra looked at the ruined city, the scattered survivors, the black smoke curling into the sky. She knew staying meant going. Back to fear, rebuilding walls that might not hold the next time. Going with him meant stepping into a war she might never come back from. But something inside her had already decided. She stepped forward, "I'm coming." A rare smile crossed his face. "Good, then let's finish this war." The transport's engines roared to life, lifting them above the city. From the air, Alyra could see the full scope of the battle, the smoking ruins of the hatchery, the scattered bodies of predators, the precision of the human fleet's formation. She realized then that the apex swarm hadn't just been defeated. Today, they had been hunted, outmatched, and broken by a species the galaxy still underestimated. As the ships rose into the clouds, Hunter 1 stood beside her, silent but watchful. Alyra knew there would be other nests, other alphas, other battles. But she also knew something else. Wherever the swarm went, the humans would follow. And when they did, the predators of the universe would remember the day a single man shredded their strongest before her eyes.